But Zubin, how do I know if coding is right for me?
That's the golden question.
So, what does the question actually mean? Well, usually what people are saying is, will I enjoy it? Will it give me success? What does that mean? What does success even mean? More often than not, people are like, will it help me earn more money? Or can I get out of this career that I feel stuck or miserable in or unfulfilled in, like I'm not operating? Welcome to Easier Said Than Done with me, Zubin Pratap, where I share with you the tens of thousands of dollars worth of self-development that I did on my journey from 37-year-old lawyer to professional software engineer. The goal of this podcast is to show you how to actually do those things that are easier said than done. I'd run through a very common question that I get. The question is coding right for you, right? I have a lot of people reaching out to me, especially as part of the coaching that I do, and they ask me this question, hey, is coaching right for me? Am I going to really enjoy it? And it's a very difficult question to answer for somebody else, right? I don't know. I don't even know what kind of t-shirt you may enjoy, right? So how am I going to know if coding is right for you? But what does help is to really understand what the question actually means. What does the word right even mean in this context? And don't worry, I will answer at the end of this video. I will take you through a bunch of other ways of thinking and frameworks and analyses and common questions that you need to understand in your context. And at the end of this video, I will give you my take on this. So you're going to have to stick around till the end for that. But here's the thing. Let's understand what this question actually means. Okay, so you've got this here, right? You can see the screen. I'll share this document. You can see the screen. So what does the question actually mean? Well, usually what people are saying is, will I enjoy it? Will it give me success? What does that mean? What does success even mean? More often than not, people are like, will it help me earn more money? Or can I get out of this career that I feel stuck or miserable in or unfulfilled in, like I'm not operating at my potential? These are the kind of people who come to me for the coaching, right? So these are their questions or their perspectives that I'm encapsulating here. Some people want to build cool products. They want to be a part of something really exciting, be in a startup, be in the tech world because they see about it on YouTube, which is a terrible way to decide, by the way. But I understand the impulse, right? You think that, okay, this is what life is. Everyone's driving around in a Tesla or whatever. Some people even reach out because they want to build their startup one day. Like me, that's how I got into this. I decided I was going to be my own technical co-founder because I was so sick of constantly begging for help from other people. That's how I taught myself to code. Then when my startup shut down, I decided I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to continue as a coder. So that's what happened to me. It's not for everybody, but it could be for a lot of people out there. And I'll explain to you later on in this video why it was right for me, why I enjoyed it, and I'll take you through all of that. But it probably helps to start by understanding, well, what is coding all about? Now, coding is a generic word. It can include software engineering, but not always. A lot of the time it won't. Like you can have lots of coding roles that do more infrastructure stuff or configuration work or some light scripting or, technically even sort of fixing, a slightly more complex WordPress site is a kind of coding, arguably, but there's lots of forms of code. But in this context, I'll talk about what I do and what most of my students want to do, which is software engineering, typically development of software products and applications. So when I say coding, what am I trying to say? I'm saying you read code, you write code. Believe me, there's a lot more reading than writing in a traditional software engineering role, which even surprised me when I do it, is just how much reading there is typically other people's code and stuff. In fact, I've linked here to this post in LinkedIn where I did this survey, I can't remember, about a year ago, and you'll see most people, I said, as long as you have more than 1 year's experience, please answer. And you'll see 76% of people said they read way more code than they write, right? So, and I'll link to that in this document that you can get in the notes below this. So, reviewing code, debugging, understanding what's going on in the system, because keep in mind, you're going to walk into a system that's existed, hundreds of thousands of lines of code were written before you got there. So yeah, you're going to be reading a lot of code, to understand the role. And so coding is also a lot of getting stuck, a lot of researching, and a lot of, designing and designing is a big part, especially as you start to rise up a bit, designing and, what's known as design docs and stuff, which is very popular, especially in US companies. So that's what coding really is, right? You're writing code, you're reading code, you're having to push things to production. And it can include, for the purposes of this conversation, it includes data science, data analysis, which could involve some Python scripting or R scripting and stuff like that. Also SQL, though SQL is not a coding language, it's a query language, just like HTML is not a coding language. CSS, these are not coding languages. These are, other tools. They're other kind of languages, but they're not software programming languages. But I include all of that when I'm talking about this in this particular conversation, right? But let's understand what coding is not. It's not like hacking in the movies or Mr. Robot. It's not like that. It's not like hackathons in the social network movie, though when you're good, you can do stuff like that, but that's not what the day-to-day experience is like. And it is not just knowing some HTML, CSS, and JSS because you did it on some free public site or whatever, right? That's like saying that because we know how to speak English or any other language, that makes us, an author or a journalist or a judge in that language. It's not that. Knowing some Python, for example, is not what coding is all about. There's a lot more to being a professional coder. I'll share with you a little bit about why I decided it was right for me. I mean, I was a 37, 38-year-old lawyer, ex-lawyer, that I'd been in management for a couple of years before that. That was my first major career change, moving from the law to management. And I'd done my startup by this time. And, I was 37, 38 when I finally learned to code and got, my first coding roles. And then by the time I was 39, I think I just joined Google, spent 2 years there as a software engineer before I left and went to Chainlink. So how did I decide coding was right for me? Well, I had given up a very successful and very lucrative previous career twice, like I mentioned. In fact, my first coding role was paid me just 25% of what I used to earn previously. But then I'd gone for 2.5 years without any income while building my startup, and I lost, 6 figures in my startup. So, I'd taken a lot of risk. So yeah, for me, my first coding role was a 75% pay cut from my last professional salaried job, right? So even then I knew it was right for me for the following reasons. One is, when I was 38, I was like, I could go back to the world I knew, the world that I once wanted to leave. I wanted to leave so long. I'd wanted to leave for almost 8 years before I actually took the plunge, right? Because it's really hard to leave something you're successful at, even if you don't enjoy it. And it's really hard to leave having a steady income and trying to learn new things all over again. And will people accept me? Will I get interviews? And, I actually did a podcast this morning where I talked about the fact that I got rejected 53 times from the company I was already working in when making the transition, because even though everyone said I was good at what I did and I had a really great track record, when it actually came down to hiring, I was too risky because they had better candidates. And this is something I teach my students about a lot. There's no point knowing how to code if you can't get interviews and if you're too risky to the hiring manager. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of advocacy, as we talked about in this podcast, that I did this morning. And I'll share that with you guys on my LinkedIn and stuff when it comes out. But you need to really know how to build support for your mission, and that takes time. Okay, and build credibility, because you can't just send your resume to people and say, hey, give me a job. Why should they? They've got other things to do. You've got to earn that, and earning that takes time and effort, and most people don't want to put in that time and effort because coding is the easy part, right? So I wanted adventure. I didn't want comfort, right? Going back to my old job was definitely going to be far more comfortable, and I knew that I once wanted to leave it, and my reasons for leaving it were very valid, because I was very successful but unhappy and unfulfilled and misaligned with myself. But now trying to move into something as scary as coding was a big unknown. Yes, it was scary, but I knew that I didn't want to do the known bit. And I was willing to risk the unknown to not repeat the known bit just because that was comfortable and easier, right? Sure, going back to my old career would have been low risk, of course. I would have had doors open for me and people would have got me back. Maybe I wouldn't have had promotions for a while, but I would have gone back to where I left off at the same level. And I could have, maybe I lost 3 years along the way, but who cares? I can earn that back, no problems, right? So it was low risk for me to return to either the law or my management life, but it wasn't the same level of high opportunity that I thought. The upside was much greater by pursuing opportunities in tech, coding, potentially start doing my own startup later on, just meeting different kinds of people. Like the opportunity was unlimited, the risk was limited. I didn't want to feel stuck anymore. I wanted to be the kind who could reinvent themselves at any age, because I knew that the person I'd become in pursuit of this was going to be the kind of person that could do other things in the future. I believe that we're always growing into something. If we're not growing, we're stagnating. And if we don't know where we want to be in 5 years, then we're kind of already there right now. And so I knew that reinvention was the way that I could move forward, especially since this is 2016, 2017, when the world was a bit different than before the pandemic and before the AI stuff came along. But I knew it was coming. I knew all of these big changes would come, and the pace of change, the rate, the speed at which things were changing were going to accelerate. The first 15 years of my career were much slower compared to the last 5 years, like significantly slower, because the world has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. And my personal circumstances, I recognized that I had an opportunity. I didn't have kids. I'd saved some money, even though I'd lost a lot in the startup. I'm now no longer married, but my ex-wife, who's a very good friend of mine, was a supportive partner then. I had these circumstances. It didn't come easy. I had to negotiate a lot of these situations, and I had to really make a lot of sacrifices and compromises. And I had no point going into them here. I make this sound easy, but it wasn't. These were hard choices, decisions, sacrifices, constant conversations required, to negotiate situations, etc. Now, what was I looking for? Well, I was looking for that flow that I experienced when I was coding, right? That sense of being really immersed in something, engaged with something that's a little bit beyond your ability, but you know you can grow into, you know you can mature into, you know it's possible for you, and that feeling of growth and progress is so addictive, and you could do it for big chunks of your day. Like, what a privilege. That flow I was looking for, which is very enjoyable. I also knew that tech was attracting, just like other professions attracted them 20 years ago, whether it was law and other stuff 20, 25 years ago, a lot of the best people would end up going to some of these professions. These days, I saw that the best people weren't going to management consulting or law, stuff like that. They were going to tech. And so I was like, okay, I want to go where the great people are. Yes, they're 15 years younger than me, but they're great people. There's a lot I could learn from them. There's a lot I could contribute to them as well. But I want to be with that energy, right? Because that from there comes lots of learning and growth. Now, to be clear, no matter what the people say in the hustle culture out there, I wasn't looking for the struggle. I wasn't looking for the grind. I wasn't looking to pit myself against obstacles and, self-doubt. No, I knew all of that was going to be part of the process. It's unavoidable, but that's not what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for hardship porn, right? I was looking for learning and growth and recognizing that the price to pay was a lot of hardship, a lot of struggle, but I wasn't looking for the struggle. I was looking for the growth and the learning and accepting that the price was going to be a lot of struggle. Now, the other thing that I really wanted was optionality. Just someone today talked about this on LinkedIn, and I vehemently agreed with them. Optionality is really important because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the future is likely to be. There are no guarantees in life, but you can generate options. You can make growth and progress. Like, I've never looked for a guarantee with my career, with my relationships, with my health, because I don't control all these things. I don't expect that, because what's the point of relying on that and not having it? You've got to take control. So optionality is super important to me, because getting stuck is the opposite of not having enough options. So I wanted optionality, and I knew how important it is to not be in a situation where control was taken away from me. So I may have less control, I wanted to have some control. And this includes obsolescence, right? Which is basically your skills become obsolete or outdated. There's less value for what you do in the market. I knew that was going to happen as AI came along. I knew the best place to be would be in software engineering, because you're never going to get a ringside view of the changes coming in any other profession, right? It'll just come to you one day unannounced, like an unexpected tsunami. Whereas in software engineering, I'd have a lot more control. I could see it coming. I could build the skills. I could be part of it. I could participate in it, and I could build my career that way and reduce the risk of being obsolete and outdated. And definitely, while sometimes you will get caught off guard in life because they're just things you don't know, on the whole, you want to be in a position where you're less likely to be caught off guard. And I genuinely believe that, having left the law and management bubble and being in the tech bubble, I can see the changes, because tech is driving the changes. It's not law, management, theory, or manufacturing that's driving the changes anymore. It's tech. So I wanted to see it coming. Yeah. So with all that in mind, maybe this will help a little bit to think about, well, who is coding good for? And of course, there's no universal prescription for this. In general, people who are creative and who enjoy the process of learning and growth and that feeling of intellectual expansion that comes, those are the people who really enjoy it, because there's a lot of learning. Unlike other professions, certainly the 3 careers I've had, tech probably has the most learning. People think law had the most learning. Law had the most learning during the study phase, right? But after that, it was pretty repetitive, in the sense that you relied on old things, you relied on old textbooks, things changed less, right? It was a lot more steady and constant. Whereas engineering, new tools, new products, new classes of bugs, new frameworks being released, or new release tools and new practices, like it just evolves so fast. So you've got to enjoy the process of learning and being like a beginner. Right? The other person that it's good for is, people who get bored easily, potentially, because a lot of coding jobs, from what I've heard, I've been very intentional about the kind of coding work I do, but I know, a huge number of coders out there are bored and unfulfilled in their work. And maybe it's because they never wanted to be coders, right? And they just did it for whatever reason, and now they're not happy and it's not aligned with them. Maybe that's it. But generally, people who get bored, when I say bored, I mean people who like novelty, who like to learn new things, to the previous point, who like to dabble in new things, to experiment, to prototype, to sort of hack things together. People who get bored just doing the same thing over and over again without much change or variety, would probably enjoy coding, because coding does offer you a lot of variety if that's what you want, right? Definitely, people who are analytical do very well in code. It's a very analytical profession, right? It is not good if you want to get rich quick. I don't care what YouTube channel you're following. I don't care what Instagram influencer, TikTok influencer you're following. It is not a get rich quick system. There is nothing in the world that does that. Okay, nothing other than gambling, and that's luck. So, if you want to do get rich quickly if you think, oh, I'll just do 90 days of, 100 days of Python and I'm going to, earn six figures. No, that's not how this works. The world doesn't reward people for minimal effort. It rewards people for a lot of effort and sacrifice. And if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. And if everybody was doing it, it wouldn't be worth six figures. The reason why it's worth six figures is simple economics, demand and supply. And the supply is always lower than the demand because it's a complex skill. It's a very important skill, but it's hard to get. And it's hard to get at the level that you'll be hired and beat the competition. And therefore, the supply is often lower. That will change. It will 100% change over time. It'll get more normalized. I think the last 20 years are the period of extreme growth. The next 20 years will be a period of high growth, not extreme growth, right? So there's still, for all of us out there with careers ahead of us, we're going to be fine in software engineering, but I can't tell you what's going to happen in 100 years. Okay. People, if you're being good at, yeah. So being good at puzzles, math, is not a predictor of success. Okay. It may predict your interest. It may predict that you have a certain kind of bent of mind, which helps and all that. But, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I really am very good at puzzles and I love math. So I therefore could be a good coder. No, it helps. It doesn't hinder, but it's not a predictor of success in any way. I'm not particularly great at math. I'm just good at learning things, right? Like this is me. I'm this guy, right? I'm a little bit of this person. I'm definitely not that person, right? I don't even like board games. So, all right, cool. Who can become effective coders? Now, the reason I scratched out good is it's a bad question. I don't know how to define good, but effective is someone who's impactful, who's appreciated by their colleagues, who contributes things of value and grows, right? That I can understand. So if that's your definition of good, then use the word good. I'm going to use the word effective. Who becomes effective? An effective coder? Well, someone who's willing to stick to a problem until they solve it. A lot of software engineering is exploring the unknown stuff that is not clear, that's a bit ambiguous and things like that. And so, especially when you're debugging or trying to get onto a new code base, there's a reason why, for example, at Google, they give you 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is to ramp up, because no matter how smart you are, there's so much out there to learn, and that's just to get to basic functioning level or effective functioning level. They give you time because it takes time. Some of these things take a lot of time and persistence, and so you got to be willing to stick to it till you get there. And people are who are curious and motivated automatically become a lot more effective because they just learn more, they learn faster, and they enjoy it. They get a reward loop from it, right? And that often comes from having a growth mindset. For those of you who don't know what a growth mindset is, check out a TED talk by Carol Dweck about it. It's a short version. The long version is a book called Mindset, which is fantastic. But basically, the growth mindset is the belief that you can learn anything with time and effort, as opposed to a fixed mindset, which thinks that your talents and your abilities are fixed and they can't be improved. People are collaborative and open-minded. There's a lot of opinions in software engineering. It's a very opinionated world. It's an engineering culture, but also philosophical culture. And so there's a lot of opinions that come into this, and so that can be quite hard. If you're not willing to collaborate and keep open-minded, you can clash with some people, and you have to have that mindset to go far in coding, right? Which also therefore brings me to the next point, that you've got to be a strong communicator. Like, strong communicators are people who can not just speak well. A lot of people think communication is about speaking well or writing well. No. Good communication is about how you're understood, not what you say. It's about how you are received and understood. There's no point me speaking really well if you don't understand what I'm saying. I have failed as a communicator. Even if I'm a good speaker, I'm not a great communicator, right? Strong communicators don't need fancy vocabularies, don't need great grammar. They just need clear thinking and a clear conclusion that they can deliver their listener to, right? Clear speaking, clear thinking, structured thinking, and being analytical is super helpful. Being persistent and patiently impatient. So what is patiently impatient? Well, it means that you accept that things are going to take a lot of time and persistence and effort, probably more than initially expected. And so you're impatient to get to the result because that's driving and motivating you and you want to see the results. But you're also accepting of the fact that it's probably going to take longer than you expect. So that's where the patience and the persistence come to, which is really important for this point here, right? Willing to stick to the problem till you get it. You must enjoy being in deep work and concentrating hard, which means sometimes you're at a desk or whatever, at a cafe or coffee, whatever, for long periods of time, and you need to be still for a long period of time and immersed in something. If you're the kind of person that is intellectually needing sort of distraction and jumping around a lot, and some people are like that, nothing wrong with it, and you've struggled to be in deep work for a long period of time or you don't enjoy it, then chances are this may not be for you. Now, you also have to like building solutions to things, and we're not talking about products or startups here. I'm talking about small day-to-day problems in your home, in your kitchen, in your office, whatever it is. You like automating things. You like building a little tool that makes things faster, easier, efficient, simpler, clearer, more reliable, more consistent. If you like building small solutions to daily problems, then you're probably thinking like an engineer already, and you'd really enjoy this. So the golden question, is it right for you? Well, maybe. Who knows, right? And I'll tell you how it can't be answered ahead of time. But look, I can tell you if it's not right for you, or chances are it's not right for you if you want to get rich quick, if you have a short attention span, if you have low attention to detail and an unwillingness to stick with things and get into the details. If you're impatient and you're distracted or you lack discipline, and so you tend to jump from one thing to the other, shiny object syndrome. I had a lot of people come to me a couple of years ago for coaching and career change to code when the Amazon FBA boom was happening. A lot of those people have an entrepreneurial bent in mind. They want to make more side income and side hustles, and they think they can run a coding job or a freelance coding business and run their FBA building and start up some real estate business. That's probably not the right fit, because it takes a lot of time, focus, and single-minded devotion to the topic to get good enough to be actually able to command a price, whether as an employee or as a freelancer. The market's a competitive place. To get that good, it's going to take a lot of single-minded focus. It's not quite like starting up a Shopify store or something that you can do for a couple hours a day and just get away with it, right? You need to get to mastery if you want to command money for it. Now, same thing for businesses too, by the way. I don't think you can do 2 hours a day and build a Shopify store, without having a team or an advertising budget and stuff. There are other tools that you end up using if that's all the time you have. Right. Probably not right for you if you want constant excitement and action, because there are periods when software engineering can be a little bit dull depending on the role, not always, but it can be dull, or there's a monotonous admin work or debugging work or code review work, whatever. So it may not be right for you. Especially if you like being physically active as part of your role, then you may struggle with the fact that software engineering is fundamentally you and your laptop for a long time. Yeah. If you're not willing to, and I scratch that do not like, because no one always likes it, but if you're not willing to wrestle with difficult, mentally abstract concepts that could sometimes make your head hurt a little bit until you get it, stick with the problem until you solve it. If you're not willing to do that and keep at it, if you don't have that temperament, then you're probably going to not enjoy it. Even if you're good at it, you may not enjoy it, right? And the classic example of this is the dreaded data structures and algorithm stuff. So many really good coders who can build perfectly great tools struggle with this because it's abstract, really abstract concepts and problem solving, which may not be that relevant in real life for most day jobs, right? You may not use it 95% of the time, but it's a way of testing that your cognitive ability, as they called it at Google, GCA, general cognitive ability. And if you're not willing to stick with the abstract concepts and turn them over your head and visualize them and understand them deeply at a first principle basis, then you're probably going to struggle with some of the other coding stuff, which sometimes requires that, right? So this question about, is it right for you? Can it ever be answered before you do it? That's what I mean by ahead of time. Probably not, because it's exactly, let's reason my analogy here. Like I said, right? You don't know if you're going to like a flavor of ice cream, or whether you're going to like dating someone, or whether you're going to enjoy the holiday, or whether the pool's going to be hot or cold until you jump in, or which car you want to buy, and whether you're going to enjoy the car, what college degree. You don't know any of these things. If you're moving countries, like I've done quite a few times now, you don't really know you're going to love being in the other city, right? Or the other country. You don't know that. And you just got to get in there and find out. But what I can promise you is, if a lot of this that I've described as what probably makes an effective coder, so, or more importantly, what could make you happy in a coding role, if that sounds like you, then your best bet is to find out, because doing nothing is not going to change anything. Doing something will change something. And even if it's not right for you, like my path wasn't linear, but the person I became through that process, my horizons expanded, my notion of what's possible in the world, I learned so much that then helped me become closer and get closer and closer to what I know really makes me happy. And ultimately, guys, we're not in this for the money. The money is there to make us happy. And ultimately, if you skip to the end, we want to feel good. We want to feel good about ourselves. We want to feel proud about the work we do. We want to feel happy with ourselves. We want to go to bed at night feeling like we're leading a good life, a life that we're proud of. Regardless of the money, regardless of the title, regardless of the status. All those are means to the actual end, which is how you feel at the end of the day. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled or not? So, you want to be able to take chances and take risks, pursue your goal, even if you make a few mistakes, which are unavoidable, by the way. You cannot skip the steps. You cannot avoid the mistakes. At least you're directionally correct. And you will discover the path will unfold as you walk in it. As Rumi says, the path is revealed as you walk in it. That's the best way to move towards it. You can always try and qualify whether you're the right fit for it or not on the outside, but you'll never truly know until you do it. There's a high degree that you're not right if some of the things I mentioned is true of you. It's easier to figure out whether it's not right for you because there are fewer things to consider. But whether it is right for you, it's almost an infinity of possibilities. And so I encourage you to take the risk. Do not be afraid of the risk, because the reward only comes with the risk. It's two sides of the same coin. You cannot separate them, except unless through randomness and luck, right? You can gamble and get lucky and you get the reward without the risk, but that's not a way to build your life. So look, I hope this has been helpful. The link to this document will be in the notes below this. So, you take a look at it anytime you want. Watch this, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter if you have any questions. Again, details will be in the description below. And remember one thing, right? People ultimately want to feel that they're making progress and that they're having the sense of traction in their lives. And just keep in mind, this is something, it's a little bumper stick I invented for myself. Traction is literally 75% action, okay? Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters out of 8 letters. That's literally 75% action, right? So if you want to get traction in your life, 75% of your results and your traction is going to come from just taking action. Take action. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Be afraid of not finding out. That's much more terrifying if you ask me. All the best, and I'll catch you next time.
Do it. Just subscribe. You know you got to do it.